Hi, everyone. Well, we're really in it now, aren't we? The steep quantum leap into 5D consciousness is getting more and more obvious at this point. No more lollygagging about in our ascension process. I'm sure you're noticing a greater intensity in the energies flowing through you lately, right? So you're aware that your ascension process is ramping up in frequency because it really is now. It can kind of feel as if you shifted up a gear somehow, or like you're suddenly finding yourself on a new moving sidewalk that is hurtling you along much more rapidly than the one you were previously on. It's hard to catch your breath sometimes. And if you're like most people I know, along with this sensation, you're maybe also feeling unusually pressured by uncomfortable emotions coming up due to old issues that have never really been resolved. Or you're experiencing a sense of overwhelm with too much happening in your external world that you got to attend to. You may feel ungrounded or confused, depressed, or mind fogged and anxious, and not even know what's causing it sometimes. Well, actually, the whole last couple of years have been like a marathon obstacle course for most of us, haven't they? A nonstop challenge of having to push through drastic change in our lives, profound loss, and dealing with old unresolved traumas. It's just somehow gotten even more intense lately for just about everyone I know and work with. And all this, of course, is on top of handling deep fear about events occurring in the world that don't look like they're going away anytime soon. Some part of you may believe that the alarming catastrophes being broadcast from the media and the internet will probably not happen. And yet, you might sense there's likely some truth and maybe even a lot of truth in what you're hearing about food shortages, the continued health scares, the warmongering, and the financial system that might be crashing in some way. And maybe you sometimes wonder just how much longer you can keep going on like this. You know you're here to ascend into 5D consciousness and probably also to assist others on the path. But how much longer can you carry all the stress and the fear and the inner turmoil involved without collapsing? At times, the exhaustion can really be overwhelming. And because of all this, you might tend to forget about the big picture of what is occurring for you during these times, which is ascension into a much higher, much freer consciousness and realm of being, which is a hugely exciting experience. In fact, all these challenging experiences are actually signs of the increased ascension frequencies that are now flowing into you more and more intensely. Think about it. Monumental change is occurring within you. Your multidimensional 5D self is now coming present in your reality and is attempting more and more to anchor itself into your body. It's coming all the more available to you in your everyday experience. And these 5D frequencies are here to assist you in this process. And as rough as it can get, they really are lovingly guiding you along in your spiritual evolutionary process so you can shift into 5D consciousness in the way that is uniquely best for you. And what this also includes at this point is preparation for handling the further breakdown of the 3D world around you that is now really very much underway. These energies are guiding you to do what is now necessary, whatever may be happening around you, They're telling you what you need to pay attention to so as to keep you going in the right direction to stay safe and free. So that's the good news. This higher you is coming on board, and the 5D energies are really assisting you to navigate through these transitional times. And this is exciting and incredible to be experiencing. But what's also happening, thanks to these new 5D frequencies, is that you're going through a death experience as well, a death of your 3D self, and perhaps a good part of the world that you've created around you until now. And your 3D self is probably putting up a fight about this. It doesn't want to let go. It's fearfully holding on and struggling to stay in charge. So you may find yourself in an experience that is not only confusing and fraught with fear, but also maybe a new place that may feel kind of dead or empty, without meaning or joy of any kind. And this is what I call the Ascension void. It's an experience that occurs at a certain time when you're traveling through the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension, has been referred to as the karmic clearing station. That's really kind of what you're going through. It's truly like a death experience, a really huge one. And it creates a lot of the exhaustion and the fear that you may be experiencing. Another way you can look at the process you're living through is simply as a huge clean out operation at this point, an urgent need to dismantle old, unhealthy patterns you still have running. Your new 5D self cannot settle into you with these patterns that are still in place inside of you. And these patterns might include messy situations you've never fully cleaned up, or painful emotions you've had to stuff for one reason or another, or traumas you've never been able to fully heal. Or maybe it's unhealthy relationships you've insisted on staying in. Remember, these are all now surfacing in order to be dealt with and then released. They are in the process of leaving. And remember too, if you're experiencing any of this, be careful to not fall into any shame or guilt or despair about them. It's important to keep in mind that this cleanup process is not happening because something is wrong with you or that you've done anything wrong. The reason is that you're rising in frequency very rapidly now. And you can't take these unresolved patterns with you into 5D. That's it. That's why it's all happening. And remember too, these unresolved issues are not a part of you. They're simply patterns you got entangled with while living in the controlled and really messed up 3D reality you've been caught in, probably for thousands of years, if you're like most light workers. And it's likely been an incredibly intense and traumatizing journey you've taken through this dense and challenging reality. So really be compassionate and understanding with yourself. Do your best to simply see the patterns for what they are and then do what you can to release them. And in fact, be aware that it's important now to attempt to heal whatever issues are arising as quickly as you can. Don't put it off. We're moving into even rougher times now for a while, and it's important to get as ready as you can for them, to be as clear as you can be to go through them. Now, I know this can be hard to do. When stuff comes up, they can bring up a lot of emotional discomfort and pain. And you might be tempted to somehow distract yourself from it, or to stuff the emotions down again into your unconscious. And you might feel drawn to trying to soothe yourself somehow with food or alcohol or drugs or sex. But if you do this, you're probably going to feel, or you'll just find that these kinds of attempts to avoid the uncomfortable patterns just don't work anymore. The more you try to avoid resolving the issues, the more likely they're going to become even more painful and powerful. They just kind of dig themselves in. So it's really smart, if you can, to summon the courage to just face them now and do your best to resolve them. And especially be willing to let go of any unhealthy addictions you may still have, or any unhealthy relationships you're still holding on to. Do your best to trust the process that's happening. Know that once you let go of these kinds of things you're clinging to, a new and better life without them truly does await you on the other side. You'll be free of them. Letting them go now will save you so much grief in the end. And you know what? You'll probably find that resolving any unhealthy patterns at this point is actually not as difficult or fearful as you might be imagining, because you'll discover that the same 5D energies that are causing the patterns to arise at this point are also making it easier and easier to resolve and release them. In choosing to honestly face your low frequency patterns, a feeling of relief can flow in, right? You've probably felt this before. Along with a new sense of clarity and peace and completion. It can feel so good. But you may be asking, so what's the best way to release these unhealthy patterns? How do you do it? Well, there's no one best way because we're all unique. But with some understanding about these patterns that have formed in us, it can be easier to decide what to do. So first, it's helpful to understand that unresolved 3D patterns typically involve emotions that originally arose out of trauma of some kind. So they can be scary to revisit, and they also contain mistaken beliefs about reality and about the world and about yourself. So it can get really confusing. And on top of that, they're often tied to old, unhealthy identities you may still be holding on to. So it's helpful to be aware of all of this and realize why some patterns are so difficult to release, and to have patience with yourself in dealing with them. And in addition, be aware that we're all unique in how we developed our patterns. Often they've come about due to, challenging circumstances in our childhood. Just everything that was happening when we were growing up, really started to form some of these patterns. Or it may just be a past karmic pattern that we've brought in with us and then continued in this lifetime. Or it may actually be a pattern we've taken on in order to release it from many of our ancestors. It's not even, just our own. And this is really happening a lot now. Many of us have taken on unresolved patterns from a whole line of ancestors, and especially from our parents, if they've died. These patterns were just passed on to us as part of how the karmic system has worked, and we're needing to resolve and release them. So with all these variables, it's difficult to come up with just one way of how to approach the patterns you may be facing, but there are perhaps some guidelines you can follow. For instance, if you recognize the pattern to be one you've already really worked on in depth, avoid getting irritated by this or falling into doubt about the past healing work you've done on it. Just know that if you have deeply felt all the emotions involved and you've been compassionate with yourself in this process, it may only require a simple process at this point. You can see what's coming up is just, it's old leftover debris from the situation that simply needs to be fully released once and for all. And if this is so, don't dive into the pattern and begin analyzing it all over again. There's no need for this. And it'll only pull you back into the mess. Instead, simply feel the emotions fully one last time, just for, brief moments. Just really feel them without any judgment or resistance to them, and then let them go. Just feel them flow out of you into the light, and then turn your attention to something else. However, there are probably certain patterns you've never quite dealt with fully. And some can actually feel brand new, right? They've been buried so deeply, you've never even been aware of them before. Or you've just somehow forgotten all about them. And so if this is the case, it's important to take time to focus on whatever is being revealed to you. Very painful emotions may be involved, and great fear can arise, but it's important to pay attention to what is coming up and do what you can to heal it. Again, if you attend to your healing when you first become aware of a pattern, you'll find the releasing process goes much more quickly and easily. It's a matter of fully experiencing the emotions involved, having compassion for yourself, doing anything that needs to be done externally that you got to do to resolve things, and then allowing it all to release. Remember, your guides and your higher self will assist you in this process. They're now really present with you, ready to help you more than ever before. And like I say, new 5D energies are with us now to create greater ease in this releasing process. However, if you find you need help with this work from an external source, do find it. Don't feel weak or inadequate in realizing you need to seek this assistance from a healer or a therapist. Some traumatic situations now arising truly are too challenging to deal with alone. And this is especially true if what you're attempting to resolve involves ancestral healing. This can be intense and overwhelming. But there is a caveat I want to give here. When you do seek help, be careful not to give your power away to any external source of assistance. It's a tricky balance here. You want to get help when you need it, but you don't want to give your power away to someone giving it to you. These are times when it's important to stand in your own knowing, trusting yourself, and discovering the immense wisdom and power you actually have within yourself. You can, of course, listen to someone else's advice and decide to follow it, but do this consciously. Check to see if your inner guidance is agreeing with the external guidance you're being offered. Be aware of your body's responses to the advice or information, especially the responses of your heart. Because one of the things that's now also happening is there's a new heart that has recently come on board within your multidimensional self that is anchoring within you now. In the past, you've likely always experienced that. Of course, it's within your heart that you felt love, right? You've especially experienced that luscious spiritual kind of love when it's arisen within you and just flowed out. And it's probably also where you have always felt your intuition to emerge from. But what you can now discover is that even your heart is changing. It's vibrating now at a much higher frequency. And what's really kind of wondrous is that it's now the center of a new mind within you. You are actually already thinking with this new heart. Check to see if this is true for you. You can discover that within the profound silence that permeates this new heart, there are also thoughts that are actually being thought. Thoughts that are coherent and calm and supremely intelligent. This can be quite a discovery because this is the mind that's going to be guiding you in every important decision you will ever have to make as time goes on. So start listening to it closely now rather than with your mind, and you'll see how well it will guide you. At any rate, as I was saying, be careful about giving your power away to anyone else, to any external source in your life, whether it's to a partner or a parent or a child or a friend or a spiritual teacher, and consciously retain your power. See if there's anyone in your life that is affecting how you feel about yourself, what you think about yourself, what you believe about reality, and what you decide to do in your life. Look to see, are there thoughts in your head that are not your own? Reclaim your mind and be aware of what you experience and what you believe to be true, and trust this. So, as is abundantly clear, a great deal is being demanded of you at this point in your ascension process. Not only do you have to deal with the unresolved patterns that are now surfacing, you need to also step into your full power as an awakened being. And in addition, you may be realizing that to do all of this, you need to stay very much awake to what is occurring within you at all times, right? And it's especially important to be aware of any decisions you make. These are really important now. You need to pay attention to every decision you're making and contemplate what the consequences of it might be, because you're very clearly creating your future now. It's important to realize whether you're consciously making choices because they look like they'll resolve the situation in the best way possible, or if you're just kind of unconsciously choosing them out of either habit or out of fear. In fact, you need to become totally aware of and take responsibility for all that you do, all that you say, all that you think, and all that you feel. This kind of awareness and responsibility is an integral part of 5D consciousness. You need to start practicing it now. But as difficult as all this may seem to be, especially while you're living in a world that's slowly collapsing around you, keep in mind that you're in the process of the most incredible ascension event ever experienced on this planet. You're taking your body with you into a whole new dimension. This has never been done before. Think about this. You are living in a monumental historical event. And a new multidimensional version of you is coming online. How exciting is this? A glorious new self is emerging within you, one in which you can experience a sense of profound joy you've never felt before. Even while all kinds of uncomfortable stuff is happening, the joy can just emerge out of nowhere for no reason. Are you already experiencing this at times? This new multidimensional self is no longer something that you somehow need to reach into some unknown realm to contact. It is actually settling down into your body now, attempting to anchor inside of you. All the 3D debris just needs to be cleaned out to make room for this. See if you can become aware of this larger you. Maybe close your eyes and tune into your body, especially focusing on the sensations in your chest, and experience the new depth of consciousness that you can now just fall into. Take time to fully sense this deeper space that exists within you. Feel the profound peace that is there, the field of pure love. You'll see that your multidimensional self truly is coming present within your body, as well as stretching out above and all around you. Feel how large and light-filled you are. You're like a huge flame of light. Your physical self, with all your thoughts and emotions, is just one small part of you, nestled within this large and powerful field of light that you are. There's an enormous freedom you can discover in this new you, a great sense of empowerment. If you take time to tune into it, you can realize that this you is very aware of all the chaos that's happening, both in the world and inside of you, and yet it's fully comfortable with all of it. When you're aligned with it, you find you're not concerned because you know all is well, that everything is precisely on track for what needs to happen for you. You know you will be absolutely taken care of during the entire period of darkness we're still to travel through during these transitional times, and that you will be someone who can fully embody the 5D frequencies and be here to assist humanity in moving forward in the best way possible. And although this transition from 3D to 5D is definitely a messy and often painful process, you will at some point be through this transitional stage and feel fully anchored in your unbelievably light-filled, multi-dimensional self. And you're going to be able to experience life in a world so filled with beauty and joy and love and peace that you'll just look back at these times knowing that simply through your continued trust in your ascension process and the frequency you maintain through it all, you've completed a monumental task of helping to usher in a whole new world. And it will all have been totally worth it. So keep up the good work you're doing. Just do it the best you can. When it gets hard, you just got to keep going, one step after the next. You're going to make it. We know it because you are very, very important for creating the new earth. You know that inside you, and you know you can do it. So just keep going. I send you much love and many blessings.